Welcome to the Night Owl session. This has to be the session that I should not be moderating because my friends who know me well enough know that I am an early morning person and not a late night person, so this is exceptional for me. And I hope that I will manage to do a good job. I'll keep moving around the room so that I can see everyone and everyone can see me. My name is Elizabeth Maloba. I'm a member of the Global Diplomacy Lab, and I'm also an elected member of the Advisory Council of the Global Diplomacy Lab. And I am here with my colleagues from the Global Diplomacy Lab to present this Night Owl session, which is a partnership between the Diplomacy Lab and the Black Strategic Forum. This is the 5th year we are doing this, so we hope that we're getting better with time at doing this. And every time we try and come up with new and innovative approaches on how to do this. I would like to introduce the panelists. We have 6 panelists at this session. And see where they have sat. Elsa Marie de Silva. Hi. Elsa is a member of the Global Diplomacy Lab. She's the CEO of the Red Dot Foundation from India. We have Cecilia Bahia. Cecilia is a community organizer and she works to empower immigrants in the USA. She is from Bolivia. Lila Batush. I'm looking for you, sorry. Lila is a relations teams officer from Hungary. Ivan Nikolovsky is a junior researcher at the Institute for Democracy, North Macedonia. Badria Zaino Mahamalat. Badria is a project manager for the EIDHR project in Morocco and Benin. So welcome everyone. For today's evening session, we're going to start by giving you a bit of a background about the Global Diplomacy Lab. And I'm going to invite my fellow member of the Advisory Council, Ivana Petrov, elected member of the Advisory Council of the Global Diplomacy Lab. And you are from Serbia. Say a few words about the Global Diplomacy Lab.
Exactly. Good evening and dobro večer. My name is Ivana. As Elizabeth just said, I'm also a member of the Global Diplomacy Lab and I'm also serving in the Advisory Council. I just wanted to share with you a couple of sentences regarding the Global Diplomacy Lab, who we are and how we operate. We basically dream about inclusive diplomacy. And our dreams sometimes become reality. And I think this is one of the evenings. Therefore, we are very thankful to the Bled Strategic Forum for this session tonight and for the partnership we have all these years. Thank you very much to Peter Grk, who is also GDL member, and to all his team for enabling us to organize this innovative session tonight. Since 2004, Global Diplomacy Lab operates under the patronage of the German Federal Foreign Minister and also German Federal Foreign Ministry in partnership with the BMW Foundation, Robert Bosch Foundation, Mercator Foundation, and GIZ Leadership Academy. We gather people from all around the world. It's something like more than 60 countries and also around 190 members who are coming from different sectors. And that is the core strength or one of the core values of the Global Diplomacy Lab, because we have representatives not only from the diplomatic world, but also media, culture, business, civil society, public administrations, and so on. So basically the question that the leading partners and also together with global diplomacy members asked themselves back in 2004 is what the future of diplomacy should look like. Should it be inclusive? To reflect the words of Peter Grk again, of early in the morning. So what the Bled Strategic Forum serves is to be inclusive and to be societal changing. And it's something like Global Diplomacy Lab is aiming at during all these years. If you have any additional questions about our work, programs we organize curriculums we have during years, additional activities, also different partnerships and experiences we had with different foreign ministries and public institutions. Please do get back to all of us. Here is also our head of the Global Diplomacy Lab, Ms. Senta Kuva, who stands ready to respond to any sort of question tonight. Last but not least, I have to say that I'm really proud to be here, not only in my region, but also to be part of the female panel. No worries, we introduced the male quota, right? I hope you will enjoy the session, and thank you very much for being here with us and for your attention. Elizabeth, back to you.
Thank you, Ivana. And I want to hand over very quickly to Elsa, and she promises me that we're going to work out a bit and lose some of the dinner. So,
thank you. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're well satiated after that wonderful dinner and you have a drink with you. Do you have a drink with you? Yeah? Great. May I request all those standing to just take a seat for the next 15-20 minutes. I need you to sit down, but not for long. So what's this session about? Creating a resilient and inclusive future from a gender and climate change perspective. As we've discussed this whole day, democracy is under threat, right? We've heard about it. Inequality is on the rise. And people are feeling left behind. And one constituency that is pretty much left behind in the most normal of circumstances is women. We often don't think about it because you know, as we progress, that there's not enough data or statistics about it. And as a result, it becomes an invisible problem. But we're here to help you think through this. And so we're going to do a little bit of exercise. It's very simple. I will ask you a series of questions. There's no right or wrong answer, so don't get worried. I know we're like a couple of drinks down, so you might get worried that you didn't hear the question properly or you're not sure of the answer. But you have to take a stand. Either one answer or the other. The first answer, if you agree with it, you sit. And the second answer, you stand. Okay? So as a child, I like cats or dogs. If you like cats, you sit. If you like dogs, you stand. And you have to take a stand. Okay, lots of cat lovers in the room, I think. Maybe that's changing. What happened? Okay, so you get the gist, right? So I'm going to start with the first one. Have you ever lived for more than a year in a nation different than the one you were born in? Yes, you sit. No, you stand. Have you ever lived for more than a year in a nation different than the one you were born in? Okay? Sit. Please sit. Were your parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents migrants? If it's a yes, you sit. If it is a no, you stand. Were your parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents migrants? Okay. Great. So pretty much 70% of the room. Okay. The next question is, the estimated number of immigrants in the world in 2017 was 258 million or 128 million. If you think it was 258 million, keep sitting. If you think it's 128 million, stand. So the number of immigrants in the world in 2017. Okay, so it was 258 million. Now out of that 258 million, between 2008 and 2019, almost 27 million were displaced because of floods, storms, earthquakes, or droughts. Basically, climate refugees. But the interesting thing is that climate refugee as a term was only coined in 2018. Now you would wonder how many of these immigrants were female. We tried very hard to look at the actual numbers, and we got something like 48%, but it wasn't sure. And then we tried to find how many women were climate refugees, and we couldn't find any numbers. That tells you a lot. Okay. More people migrate internally within sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and Latin America. If you think it's true, please stand. Please sit. And if you think it's false, please stand. So more people migrate internally within sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and Latin America. So most of you are correct, it is true. So the UN and World Bank say that by 2045, almost 140 million, which is 3% of the population in these three regions, will migrate internally due to climate change. There will be crop failure, drought, water scarcity, and sea level rises. And most of these shifts will be from rural to urban areas. The next question. In 2016, how many countries in the world had a natural disaster? You know we have 198 countries in the world. So how many countries do you think had a natural disaster? Less than half you sit, more than half you stand. You're right, most of you are right. It's more than half. 117 countries out of 198 had a natural disaster. So that just goes to show you the extent of climate change and our ability to actually address it. And if we don't have a climate change perspective to our policy making, and further we don't have a gender perspective when we make these climate change policies, it's really not going to have the effect that we are thinking about. Now let's move on to specific gender questions, and I'll explain why. Do you know if your country has signed and ratified the Sea Law? What is the Sea Law? Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Violence Against Women. If you think it's yes, you sit. If you think it's no, please stand. Okay, so this is a very well-informed lot. There are two countries that have signed but not ratified. That is the USA and Palau. And some countries have not signed it at all. That's the Holy See, Iran, Somalia, Sudan, and Congo. Does your country have laws protecting women against domestic violence? If you think it's yes, please sit. If you think it's no, please stand. Okay, and how many countries do you think lack laws? If it's 29, you sit. If it's 49, you stand. It's 49 countries that don't have laws. So we, fortunately, are in Slovenia, and we are in Western Europe, we are in the Balkans. And you may wonder, why am I asking you all these questions? But you know, I come from India. And in India, we have all the laws. But there are many countries around the world that don't have laws. In my country, we have laws, but it's the implementation of the law that is a problem. So let's move on. In South Africa, every X number of hours, a woman is killed by her intimate partner. If you think it's 5 hours, you sit. If it's 8 hours, you stand. In South Africa, every 5 or 8 hours, a woman is killed by her intimate partner. If you think it's 5 hours, you sit. If you think it's 8 hours, you stand. It is 8 hours. And in India, every X number of minutes, a woman is raped. 15 minutes, you sit. 30 minutes, you stand. It's 15 minutes. And Mexico, X number of women have gone missing and have been termed disappeared. 15,700, that's 5,700 women. Or do you think it's 8,700 women? No? It's 8,700 women have been termed disappeared. Number of women parliamentarians globally. If you think it's 33%, you sit. If it's 24%, you stand. It's 24%. Now, why is this important? It's important because if we don't think actively about gender, it becomes invisible, like I said. But what it does is it it kind of perpetuates the stereotypes of the low status that women have in many societies around the world. And this results not only in low birth rates, but also low labor participation, low leadership positions, and also limited access to health and education. And if you're talking about climate change, when you look at a disaster, a lot of women get left behind because they don't have the adequate resources or the education and skills that is needed for them to deal with that disaster. But it's possible that you can have people in leadership positions. You have Rwanda, which has 61%, Cuba and Bolivia, which have 53% of women parliamentarians, and Ethiopia just showed us that where there's a will, there's a way, and overnight the cabinet has 50% women inducted. And the last question, do you believe that climate change funds should have a gender focus? If you think it's yes, please stand, and if you think no, please stand. Okay, thank you. The Green Climate Fund is the first multilateral fund with a comprehensive gender response approach to operations. And it's only now that most of the funds are realizing that they need to have a gender focus. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Elizabeth, and we are going to deep dive into the specifics of our presentations, which will help you think through this complex issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Elsa. I think my biggest takeaway from that exercise was if we don't think about gender, it becomes invisible. And it's interesting, I thought it was 5,700. We are going to do a deep dive into the various cases that are presented at the front. So each of the panelists prepared a poster to share with us, and they're going to tell us a lot more about their poster and why they thought that this was an important issue to share. I'm going to give them 4 minutes each to speak, and then we're going to allow for question and answer. So I will start with Cecilia Bahia, and her poster says nanopolitics.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Can you time my 4 minutes? Because I especially want to spend my time having a conversation with all of you. So, things change, people change, the systems are the same. So let me tell you a story about Selena. Selena is from Mexico. I just met her in Durham. Durham is a small city in North Carolina where I am living now. So I had to bring people, Latinos, immigrants, to a meeting with the mayor of the city, whose name is Steve Sugar. I needed at least 600 immigrants. I needed to have a packed church of people. So I was knocking at the doors, trying to bring people and trying to bring awareness on affordable housing. So I knocked in Selena's door, and she didn't open the door. I came the next day. She didn't open the door. The third day, I was able to have a brief conversation. She didn't trust me, and I am Latina. She's from Mexico. We were speaking Spanish. I was trying to build some trust. So I was in a hurry to build political capital for a specific meeting that I thought it was important for everybody, but it was not important for Selena. So sometimes we're trying to achieve change through what seems to be the right agenda, but it's not the right agenda for the people. So the fourth time I visited Selena, I didn't ask her to come to a meeting. I asked her, ¿Cómo estás? How are you doing? And she invited me to her house. And then we had a conversation. And that's how I knew that she was a coffee grower in Puebla, Mexico. And she told me how much she suffered when they had to sell their farm because there was a drought and there was nothing to do and there was no water to drink. They sold the farm, they walked, they took the train, they walked the desert, and they are now undocumented immigrants living in the States. She was poor in Puebla, Mexico. She's poor in the United States of America. And I have to say, she's even more poor because she has no social capital. She doesn't know the names of the neighbors. She doesn't know the name of the authorities. She has no permission to be in the street driving the car. So what I learned with Selena is that I cannot be in a hurry for change. That sometimes the small things are beautiful. A how are you is more beautiful than come to a meeting because it's important. So my statement is small is beautiful. And that's why my masterpiece name is Nano. So why Nano? Nanotechnology, nanomedicine, nanocosmetics. Do you know what this nano revolution is? So humankind has figured out that if you want a tennis ball that is going to be more effective, that is going to go faster, that is going to long forever, you have to work in the molecules, and then you have to work in the atoms. If you want a better sunscreen, if you want a more beautiful jacket, if you want better shoes, if you want faster computers, everything is based on that of nanotechnology. The closer you work with the unit, the more perfect it is. But throughout the world, we're working in the system level, in the macro system level, completely forgetting about the nanoscales, about people. So even today, we were talking about the systems, but not about people. So things change, people change, but systems are the same. So my hypothesis for the group is, if I work with Selena in personal relations, if we empower her, if she is the one who's going to move next, knocking the doors, and going and be part of public spaces for taking decisions, are we going to change the system? Is the system and democracy ready to go from regional levels to more local levels and try to benefit people on a more personal level? Is that the kind of democracy that we need to build? And at least for the disempowered poor people with who I am working in USA, I have become to a realization that not even 500 is good, one is enough, but one change at a time. So I have two questions for the people, and that's why I want to interact. The first one is, if Selena is going to be a nano-citizen, even though she's an undocumented immigrant, if she comes to a public space, is that public space enough for provoking change? So my first question for you is true power and decision-making in the public spaces where Selena can go and take part? So who thinks that the true power of change is happening at the local level? You think so?
Yes, I do. My name is Tim, and I come from Bosnia. I work and study in Germany. And in the Western Balkans, we spend a lot of time. The taxpayer money from the European Union and the US to the USA, and we try to finance a lot of programs that will bring up the reconciliation process. Yes, but nothing happened. Then we started to finance the youth camps, and then we started to finance the regional cooperation. Right now, through the regional youth cooperation office, and then in less than a few years, it showed that the change needs to come bottom up, not top down, because people need to feel the need to change. People need to feel the change and the chance to become a change.
So Bosnia is a good example of people taking decisions at the regional level. Does any country have a different experience where decisions are not being made locally? Are we all being part of the centralized systems? I'm surprised. So why do you think, when I arrived yesterday to the airport, one of the statistics in the Gazette says that 70% of the people in the Balkans are disappointed with politics, democracy, the parliamentary system. So that means that they don't feel part of of the system, 70%. The Gazette says that 39% of the young people are ready to leave their country. So that means that they don't feel part of any decision making, that their future doesn't seem that bright. And that can happen in Colombia, so in Colombia even the statistic is higher. 49% of the people feel that they are not taking any kind of decision in their country. So why this disappointment in democracy if they are taking decisions? Why this crisis in Europe, in USA, in Latin America, in Africa? Where is the system failing? Or is that a big question? Or is maybe nano-politics a way to resolve it? Do you know what is my problem? I used to be a politician, like 15 years ago. Now I'm a community organizer. Another way of saying that I am a politician. But when I was a true politician, I was looking for votes. Right now, nobody can vote for me because I cannot run for any election. I'm looking for change. And that is a huge difference. I don't want to win anything. I want change to happen. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there.
I think there's an intervention from Ivan.
No, he agrees with me.
Okay. He agrees. Hopefully everybody gets as much agreement as you, and we don't have any hot arguments, and then we can go to bed soon. So I would like to invite Ivan. With Ivan's poster, I'm looking for the black woman. Is there a black woman? No.
Unfortunately not. Well, when I created my poster, and when I told my friends what I'm going to talk about in this panel, they said, well, it's a success in itself that a male from the Western Balkans is talking about gender equality and climate change, and they were laughing. They thought it's funny, but it's not. Actually, I'm coming from a country with not a very positive record when it comes to participation of women in decision-making, as well as tackling environmental issues and climate change. Since the introduction of multi-party democracy in my country, none of the key political functions has been ever held by a woman, with exception in 2004, where our current defense minister was acting prime minister for a very short period of time. The only woman in high position we had was in socialism. So after the introduction of democracy, no woman has ever held a high political function. Out of 23 ministers in the government, only 5 are women. Out of 80 mayors, only 6 are women. And unfortunately, that's not the situation applying only to North Macedonia. It applies worldwide. In G7, we can only see one woman. In G20 is also one woman. I welcome the decision by the European Commission to have a gender-balanced composition, and I've read like a few hours ago that goal has been achieved. But it's for the first time in 2019, and the EU exists formally since 1957, that we have a first female European Commission president-elect, so it's still not formally president. In UN, we've learned that only 4 women were chairing the General Assembly, but we still haven't the Secretary General, female Secretary General. And by excluding women, which is a worldwide phenomenon, from the decision-making processes, we just disable them of participating in policy-making and decision-making for very important issues such as climate change, which UN-led research has shown that if women had been given the chance to participate with all that knowledge, experience they have in the field, they could have contributed much more in creating policy measures, policies for the better of our planet and for more comprehensive battle against the climate change. Unfortunately, many women, due to social, political, economic reasons, are disabled from this position. And on the other side, UN finds out that women are more likely to be affected by the negative implications from the climate change than men, especially in developing countries. So that's why I decided to kind of, with a very simple poster, it appears simple and it's very straightforward, to tackle a discussion about why we still live in a world where power structures are male-dominated and power is thought to be exclusively male. Politics is thought to be exclusively a male's world. And I would tackle the issue of maybe when we talk about this issue, we forgot the elephant in the room, and that is the patriarchal system and unfortunately toxic masculinity, which teaches men to be afraid when they're gifted by God. Usually power is at risk and can be taken by women, God forbid, right? So I would like to spark a discussion on this issue, and I would want to give you a small, like a task, if you can think how you can name my poster, because it looks straightforward, but I don't think it's that straightforward. So I would end but just by stating that sometimes I feel ashamed as a human being that we, in the 21st century, in the eve of the third decade of the 21st century, we still talk about gender equality and climate change as if we have to additionally convince ourselves that these are indeed important issues to be discussed. So, yes, I won't spend my time anymore and yield the floor to the audience if there are questions.
So do we have any questions or responses for Ivan? Or any name for his poster? I'm looking for suggestions for what we call this poster. It doesn't have a black woman, so I'm not naming it. There's only one woman and she's white.
I have a suggestion.
You have a suggestion?
Yes, I have a suggestion, and that would be who runs the world.
Actually, you don't see one thing. The earth is a woman and the future is a woman as well.
Okay, the earth is a woman.
Hateful eight. The hateful eight.
The Hateful Eight.
Yes. That's a film.
I like this.
The Hateful Eight. They do look quite like the G8.
Actually, Elizabeth, you saw there is no black women. I saw that the globe that you're showing is Africa and South America. So the first thing that came to my mind is the North ruling the global South. That was my first impression. So it's not only who in gender, but who geographically as well.
Actually, I mean, this is taken, probably most of you recognize this picture, this is taken from the G7 summit. And we can talk about that because here we have problems of intersectionality. Okay, it's not just woman, but why not black woman, why not transgender woman, right? The question is deeper that we think, and it cannot be seen just from one perspective. By the way, the whole planet is burning. It's not just the focus is not just on Africa and South Africa and South America.
Any questions, interactions for Ivan? Further? Yes, one more.
Thank you. More of a comment, I would say. Because whenever we talk about women including up right away, she's also from Bosnia, but I work in Kosovo. Whenever we we talk about women in decision-making process, we always talk about, bringing them first on the table, right? To get those quotas and faces showing up there and raising their voices. But then, in a lot of the topics, whenever we actually have these conversations that women come to the table, and then we talk about gender issues, then it's only women at the table. And it's not helping. I mean, okay, yes, we're also trying to get women to fight for themselves, but it's kind of a double, both sides of the coin really matter. And at the same time, yes, we always say how it always sounds negative that, men have to make space, but there's a grand responsibility on all of us, and we're not taking the control either.
I completely agree. I would suggest to all of you a book that I am currently reading. It's called Man Up, Surviving Modern Masculinity by Jack Irvin. It's not a gender studies-based book. It's actually written by a journalist in a very simple language, understandable to all of us, so you don't need to have an academic background. And it talks about how teaching men from the youngest age, to be strong, to be, not to be sensitive, not to talk about issues that might get emotional, just to, show power, hide their emotions, be, presentful, be all the synonyms of power, later in life disable us from even tackling these issues because it makes us less men. Right? Gender issues is just about women. How can we bring up to that? It's not our business. And unfortunately, this is a latent issue that might not be very evident, and I do agree when we talk about gender issues, it seems like women's rights organizations are around, and it's not a discussion that tackles all of us, because I do believe that human rights are human rights, and I hope that one day that they will be just called rights, without gender graphics. So I recommend this book. It reminded me.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Evan. Thank you for your contribution. I now have the difficult task to switch my hats from moderator to presenter and to ask Cecilia to keep the time for me. And this is my poster. But listening to the conversation and being who I am, I just abandoned my poster. I'm going to tell you instead of a conversation I had with a friend of mine. So I grew up with a Kenyan lady in Nairobi. Well, we're not born and raised in Nairobi, but we met in school. And she now lives in France. And this year, I get a WhatsApp message from her, and it says, Elizabeth, help. I have just been told that all Africans are poachers, and if we're left to take care of our environmental resources, there will be no wildlife left on the continent. And you are on the board of a number of conservation agencies. Can you respond? And I would like to ask, how would you respond? Is it true that if we leave the resources of Africa, Africa's wildlife, to the people in Africa, whose population is growing faster than the rest of the world, because the women are having too many babies, we will deplete the resources of Africa and therefore create a crisis? How would you respond? I see some smiles. Is it true? Yes, no, don't want to speak. Very dangerous topic she's gone into now.
Maybe don't know.
You don't know. Okay.
Resource management is...
resource management is complicated. So the outcome is unknown. It's not certain. But is there a generally held belief that this is likely to happen? This is a different question. Is that the perception? Okay, in a different conversation, we were talking about the statistics of the population in Africa. I think I find this conversation very difficult to listen to because two issues in that conversation were interesting. The first one was Africa's population is going to double. So there are 1.2 billion Africans now, and in 2050 there will be 2.5 billion. And the reason this is of concern, the first reason this is of concern in that conversation was because you're going to degrade the environment, and then there will be a political crisis. And I guess therefore that means there will be migration. And the second thing that was difficult was we need to do something about how many babies you have. Does it disturb you as much as it disturbed me, or did it just disturb me because I was a black woman? I see smiles.
Obviously, the way you presented it is extremely disturbing. And I find that the issues, as you presented, is a purely African issue. If you would look at concerns, and the key concerns that may be behind your friend's question, then we can, of course, broaden the scope. But presented as you presented, this is, of course, racist, because it actually says that Africans are not able to manage their resources, and they're not managing the population growth. So the question is, of course, also because you reported about your friend, it's what were her concerns behind her question, and what are the concerns behind your getting the question. And if you look at the key concerns, I think then we might find some commonality to unpack what is happening here. But obviously, as you presented it, I completely understand how you feel or could feel about it in terms of being a victim of some racist abuse.
Okay, so I'm going to try and engage a bit further and ask, help me to understand the key concerns behind it in a way that is better framed than it was framed to me in those conversations. Because these were real conversations, and those were real statements that were made. And I was being asked, can you please respond to this? And I was thinking, how do I exactly respond to this without saying something that's politically incorrect in the moment? This was my dilemma. How do I respond without being politically incorrect? What, you would like to know how I responded?
No, why didn't you respond what you wanted to?
I
Pick up the phone. You know, telephone conversations are often better than text messages.
Telephone conversations are better than text messages. One of those conversations was actually face to face. It was still difficult. I had no idea how do I respond in this situation that I'm not the angry black woman. This is normally my position. She's the angry black woman. How do you respond? Oh, what's wrong with being the angry black woman?
You're right to be an angry black woman. Don't you think so? What's wrong with it? The others has to accept. You have many reasons for that.
I am afraid that if I am an angry black woman, we will lose sight of the issues. And the issues are a bit deeper than that because I come from a country where our wildlife law denies the citizens of the country access to wildlife resources. This is what my Wildlife Act in my country says. And we're having a conversation about consumptive use of wildlife. And there's a whole big fear. And it's not local, it's foreign. It comes with aid and support. And this fear states that actually, if we allow consumptive use of wildlife, there will be no animals left. This is despite all the statistics to the opposite.
Extrapolation, there's of course extrapolation of experiences in Europe, where we had basically the extinction of big mammals until the beginning of the last century, and of course North America, where big mammals had a similar kind of fate. This is very interesting also in the intra-European discussion, because you have a similar discussion with regard to certain big carnivores. Only the Western Balkans have still big carnivores, eagle, wolves, and bears. And exactly the same discussion is happening here. So if you leave it to these people in the Western Balkans, they will not be able to maintain the kind of level of the big carnivores, which have been extinct in the rest of Europe. So there is an extrapolation of what happened to big mammals and carnivores, etc., in other places in the world, where basically poor management by white settlers in North America and by the European population has led to exactly those results.
Thank you. Cecilia just mentioned to me that I have 90 seconds, so I'm going to wrap up the overall of my conversation. How did I respond to my friend? I'm happy you said it was mismanagement by settlers and the European population. I told her, listen, we don't have access to our wildlife population, but I know who gets hunting licenses. And I know who trades in wildlife artifacts. And the last time I checked, it was not us. So there's something there that needs to be looked at. We also had a different discussion where we're trying to figure out how pastoralism and the systems that we had traditionally are useful for managing resources. And in countries like Ethiopia, in countries like Sudan, before they had all the political turmoil they're having now, in Uganda, we have now what we call customary land, and we have an act for this. And in this land, resources are managed by the traditional customary systems. And surprisingly, the land degradation in those areas where it's managed under those systems is working. So I was discussing this with a friend of mine, and she told me, you know, Elizabeth, there's only one woman who ever won the Nobel Prize for Economics. Her name is Elinor Ostrom, and she actually says that the commons can be governed better if there is no government and there is no privatization. And this is what I want to leave at this point. So, hand over to the next speaker, and I think it is Lila.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. And also thank you for making it to this night session. I know it's quite late. And first of all, thank you for all the previous speakers. I think I myself learned a lot during these presentations. And for now, before introducing you to my poster, I just wanted to tell you the story of how I actually got here, and that will lead us into the meaning behind my poster. When I got the email about the possibility to be here tonight and to be a speaker, I started wondering whether I actually had the knowledge to be a speaker here tonight. And that got me to the idea of, can we think about what we think about this topic? And that's when I thought, how about presenting not my own opinion about the subject, but how can we, as young future leaders in the 21st century can get to know the idea about gender equality and also climate change. So what I chose as a topic for my poster is the different levels we as individuals can deal with one given subject. So I'm hoping that after the presentations you will have the possibility to check the posters closer. What I chose as a topic is to look at gender equality and climate change as a pyramid. There are the scientists, the academics, who deal with a given issue, and of course they research it for years, they deal with this really inclusively, and then they just write an academic paper, which is of course really rich in information, but how many people is actually reading those? Well, not so much. And then there is the next level, which is, I think, a bit closer to us already, which is the policy making, decision making level, maybe international organizations such as the UN, also such organizations like the EU. Well, of course, we know who they are. They also know that their position is to actually make legislative actions, to make decisions that will affect the life of ours and everyday life of us. And yes, they might reach a bigger influence on the public, but still something can get in the way, and that even legislative act might not get into power at all. And then the last level of the pyramid is those people who we listen to, who we follow each and every single day through social media, which is, as it has been said many times before, is one of the greatest powers of the 21st century. I hope that you agree with me on that. And those people, they are not, and I would like to emphasize that, they are not the influencers, because what they do is quite different. But they are those influential people who have their own impact on society. And I chose 3 female, really influential people. And also, why I chose them, it's not a coincidence. It's there to show that the color of your skin does not matter in standing up for either gender equality or climate change or any other given issues that exist and that should be dealt with. I have here Charlotte Sandberg, who is an author of a book I hope many of you is familiar with, which is called Lean In, Women, Work, and the Will to Lead. And she's the CEO of Facebook, and formerly she worked for Google. She is, so to say, a typical white American woman. Now on the other side of the scale, we have the former US First Lady, Michelle Obama, who is a really influential black woman with all what she represents. I think it's really influential and really amazing to get to know what she was doing and what she still is doing in her position, and even then as a First Lady, or now as just being an influential lady as she is. And in the middle, there is, many of you possibly know her as Meghan Markle, but now, of course, she's Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex, and she is a biracial woman with a really, really influential voice on the issue of gender equality. And recently, she's also dealing with the issue of climate change. And I would be happy to hear your opinions about what all these 3 women are doing and what you think that they do in order to influence the society and whether you think they're successful or not. And also, while I finish the presentation, before I give you the word in the Q&A section, I also would like you to think about other influential people, male or female, who think that should be on this poster. So we have 3 quotes here, and it's not the quotes themselves that matter, but the fact that now we are here speaking about and we're not reading an academic paper. However, the outcome might be the same, that we acknowledge that gender equality and climate change, or at least any other given topic we might talk about, matters. So So here we have Cheryl, whose famous quote, and it's for those who read her book, is that in the future there will be no female leaders, there will just be leaders. So she puts the emphasis on actually being a leader, not being afraid of standing up and sitting to the table, as some of you mentioned before. On the other hand, we have Michelle Obama, the former First Lady, whose words are that enough is enough. And then we have Justice Sachs, who is really up to the female political participation. We're saying that if we leave half of the population out of the decision-making level, of course, we lose a big potential for the future. So now, without further ado, I would like to give you the floor, either to share your own opinion, share your own practice, or just look into yourself and just skim through who you follow on social media that can have the same impact, or whether you agree or disagree, which I'm also really happy to hear, with me on saying that those people, those influential people, either social media or in any other platforms, they can make the same or even bigger impact on the society in raising awareness to these issues. Thank you.
So 3 examples. Do I see additional thoughts?
I think Greta Thunberg has to be there.
Definitely. Okay.
Okay. So 1 addition. Questions, thoughts, ideas, additions, suggestions?
Just the name. I think Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez should be there.
Thank you.
I think that in this poster, perhaps some of the nanopolitics would come in, because perhaps what we see out there, the narrative that we receive, maybe that's not it. And these are women who mostly fit into the system. These are not women that are changing the system in such a fundamental way as even some people that I know, from a very local level in their own community. So what we see is not what we get, actually. So
I'm really happy that you mentioned it, because that would have been the other part of my presentation, is that if you follow these women, if you not just follow their personal accounts or their personal feeds, but also if you read more into what they're doing, you also encounter the criticism they get. And so really thank you for mentioning it, because just in the recent weeks, I think it was last week, when of course the Chancellor, for example, got many critical voice in press about taking private jets while advocating for climate activism. And also I'm really curious about not on these specific issues, but in general your opinion about whether these people in general who we think are influential and also could be influential in a way are acting hypocritical or not.
I have a suggestion, sorry. For a woman that is probably not known internationally, but she's really relevant in Italy, and her name is Laura Boldrini. She was the president of the parliament, and she has a really interesting degree. She worked for the United Nations, for UNICEF, and so on. And when she was elected president of the parliament, she was attacked only because she was a woman. And the kind of attacks, especially hate speeches, was at this level that it was quite problematic in Italy. And she really promoted the discuss about hate speech. And she was also the promoter of law against hate speech, and especially against hate speech for women.
Thank you. Do we have other comments?
Thank you. While you rightly pointed out that there's, of course, these so-called influences, I would still say that the top level of the pyramid is actually what you should also focus on. Meaning, increase the level of the discussion and the level of erudition, that actually people are talking about the real issues and not the attitudes that people have on these issues. So I would actually say I would encourage those women to promote more academic literature, accessible academic literature, in easy language, conceptual issues with regard to biology, biodiversity, pollution, being able to name animals, being able to name soil qualities, being able to name air pollutants, and not just stick to, I like climate change alone. And I think that's the main problem we have currently, because these influencers are still very much playing with emotions, which is fine, that's how you get your clicks, but this doesn't necessarily lead to action. It may lead to more clicks, and then this is great for the industry, that all these clicks are also consuming energy, as we all know. So I think we really need to work on the top level of your pyramid. It's broadening it. It shouldn't be like a little tip, but it should be the basis.
Thank you. And to be honest, I'm really grateful for those opposite opinions, as we heard about in the last couple of minutes, because to be honest, and I wanted to say it for the last part of my whole presentation, is that my real aim with this, even though I admire those women, but my real aim with this was to show that what we see is not really what's actual current approach and the best approach in order to tackle these issues might be or are actually. So I'm really happy that you mentioned that the real aim should be on actually the discussion in a more academic way, and that's what my aim was to prove that academic research can be actually be brought to the level of those who all follow, for example, these influential people and not read academic science. So thank you for mentioning it.
Thank you. I would now like to invite Badria, and I know Badria is going to be talking very specifically about a real and existing project.
Good evening, everyone. So today in my poster, I would like to introduce the project Get Involved Women Empowerment in Politics in Morocco and in Benin. So first of all, as my colleagues said before, gender equality is really connected to climate change, and I think Morocco and Benin are quite a good example. For example, Morocco, 30% of the GDP come from the agriculture, and also 40% of the population works in this field. So women are all really engaged in this field. Awareness is really important, but I think it's not enough, and that's when actually we need to have more women in leadership positions. And that's actually, we launched in March 2018 the project Get Involved Women Empowerment in Politics in Morocco and in Benin. So we have two target groups in this project. The first one are men and women who are in leadership positions in political parties. And secondly, that's the young female members of political parties and also women who are interested in politics. So our types of programs are workshops, but also mentoring programs and conferences. So with this project, we try to support the democratic transition in both countries, also to keep the non-partisan approach, while supporting political parties. And we aim with this project after 3 years, it was also co-funded by the European Union and 9 other political African and European foundations. First of all, to sensibilize the men and leaders of the political party about the importance to have women in leadership positions, and secondly, to give the capacities and also of young women to achieve and to advance in their careers in the political parties. And finally, to build a cross-party network, one in Morocco and the other one in Benin, and So there is a platform to have an exchange about the best practices in both countries. I would like also to say that, for example, Morocco, we implemented the quota system, so it is around 15% in the parliaments, but still nowadays parliaments in Morocco have 20% of members of parliament are women. In Benin, unfortunately, in the last results of the elections, we reached 8%. So that's again a topic that we can perhaps discuss afterward about the importance, to what extent quota can help to include more women in decision making. So perhaps if you have thoughts about it or questions, I just actually give an overview about the project. Okay, so maybe there is like different approaches in Europe, but also in Africa. That's not actually the same. But in Morocco, we are now. We think we reached the level to skip the quota system and to. It's like easier to women to get into parliament and also in politics. Perhaps to sum up, I just want to say that through this 1.5, we are already in the middle of some of these projects. In Benin and Morocco, every day we met through this workshop like incredible women who had actually capacities, but the only problem we didn't actually see them, especially in the rural spaces, where they are working actually not only on politics but also raising families. With this thought about how it's important it is education and also should be part of the decision-making position. So actually that's my point. So if you have a question about the project or about political system in both countries or female in politics, please.
I'm looking around the room because I have to walk all the way here. Nobody has any questions for him. Wait, we say that means they either have perfect understanding. They understood it perfectly. You did a very good job. Thank you. I'd like to invite our last speaker, Elsa, who was here.
So I have the difficult job keeping you awake. How many of you have been to India? That's my country. A few. How many of you want to go to India? Quite a few. I would love for all of you to come because it is a beautiful country and I am captivated by the view over here. I mean, every morning I wake up and I can't get enough of the view. But my country is beautiful too. Unfortunately, we are #1 most dangerous place for women according to the Thomson Reuters Perception Survey. Now that makes me feel really sad. Imagine we are #1 on the list of the most dangerous countries, ahead of Saudi Arabia, Congo, and Syria. But if you look at any other development indicator, whether it's the UNDP, the Women, Peace and Security Index by the Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace and Security, or even the World Economic Forum, we are pretty much at the bottom of the list. And what's pulling India down on this list is our approach to gender equality and our treatment of women. So, you know, every country has to report on the SDGs. Do you know the SDGs? The Sustainable Development Goals. And as women, we have one, or rather gender equality is one by itself, #5. Actually, my poster has 2 sides, but maybe later you can come up and see. By our own admission, the government of India has reported that the entire country is pretty much poor on SDG #5. It's completely in red, except for 2 slivers of orange, which is average. That's really shocking. But to me, it's not really shocking, because if you look at all the numbers, the birth rate, for example, we are now, in 2 states in India, we are at 806 female births to every 1,000 male births. Which means, even though we as a country don't have a one-child policy, unlike some others, we choose not to have female children. And in our country, we have a law that prohibits female, first of all, determining the sex of an unborn child. But people are still going ahead and getting a female girl child. Then you have, of course, violence against women, which on a global average is 1 in 3, but in my country, my sample size says it's almost 100%. And then you have things like participation in the labor force. India, as you know, is a 1.2 billion population. We are 48% women, and yet, even though we have the highest number of women graduates, we are decreasing in our participation in the labor force. Unlike economies of our size, we are at 26% women participation in labor force. And the focus of this government is increasing economic empowerment. A lot of money, CSR money, government money is being spent on these programs, yet it's not translating into any actionable result. The number is just decreasing year on year. Just a few decades ago, from 42% participation in the labor force, we are 26%. Yet the McKinsey study says that if India were to achieve true gender equality by 2025, we would add $770 billion to our GDP. That's a lot of money. So what's really holding us back? It's the overall low status of women. And when you saw the previous presenters, we had this young, confident, beautiful woman presenting, and she felt that she didn't have enough knowledge to stand in front of you. Imagine that with somebody else in another part of the world. You know, this low status of women, though our constitution assures us that we are equal on paper, in practicality, we are not allowed to live our lives fully. It's not a level playing field. And that translates into many kinds of violence. One of which kind I am trying to map in my organization. So we are mapping sexual violence in public spaces through crowdsourced data. And the reason for doing that is because we find there's a data gap. What is being reported in official statistics, it does not reflect the true nature and size of the problem. But what happens is the daily reality that women and girls face when they're walking down the street, taking public transportation, at the workplace, in the school, on college campuses, etc., is holding them back. It's stopping them from venturing too far from their home. It's stopping them from achieving their economic potential and thereby limiting their opportunities in life. And that's why you have a lot of women dropping out when they should actually be participating fully. What we do is we have a tool, which is a global tool, but in India we have the largest data set of crowdsourced data, where, coming back to the nano part of it, if you give citizens the information at their local level as to what is happening in their own neighborhood, we have found it is very powerful for them to engage authorities like the police, like municipal corporation, or even their community elders in finding local solutions. And I'll give you examples how that has been done. For example, we found a lot of girls drop out of school. Now you may think, how is that possible? But we are sitting in Europe, okay? In India or in countries where it's highly patriarchal, there's often honor linked to this kind of violence. And if you experience it as a woman or a girl, the family will say, under the guise of safety, it's not necessary for you to go to school, because what is your ultimate path? You have to get married and then you have to have children. It's not necessary to have a career and therefore not necessary to have an education. But we have found that when you engage young girls and the community in this dialogue, the girls are able to negotiate a longer education level. So if they were allowed grade 10, they now negotiate with their parents to go to grade 12. If they were allowed up to grade 12 education, they're now asking to graduate, and so on and so forth. They become more confident accessing public spaces, which means that they can take public transportation. As you know, in most countries, we want to get people off their private cars into the mass public transport. Now think of India, where you have millions of people in these cities. They are overcrowded. And if you are women, your experience on those buses or trains is pathetic. So how actually will you incentivize women to travel on their public transport if it is not safe? In fact, it's a reverse thing in India, where if you achieve some kind of financial independence, you move from public transport to your own private transport, just so that you don't experience this kind of violence. But if you have an urban planning perspective to this, you may make it better, safer for women, so that they don't feel that they need to go into private transportation. We've had a lot of discussion on college campuses involving students and administration, just so that students don't feel like they can't speak up or they have to drop out of school. We've had the police change the patrol timings. And a lot of the governments are looking at smart cities. Even in India, we have a program where the Prime Minister's office is talking about 100 smart cities in India. But they are talking mainly about digitizing data. I'm thinking about getting them involved from a gender perspective because, again, it comes back to this nanopolitics. If the local population doesn't feel safe, doesn't feel included, then no matter what you do, it's not going to work for the larger city or the larger population. And that is why I think it's very important when we are looking at a democracy, not just talking about people coming out and voting every 5 years in my country for a government. It has to be a two-way street within that 5 years as well. And data plays a very important role. So I'm going to stop there. And if you have any questions on how this can be applied in your countries, I'd be very happy to discuss that. Thank you.
Any questions for Elsa? Any questions for Elsa? Any comments? You are also perfectly understood. I fear that if we do anything further, we will be giving everyone from their very smart people. And therefore, I would like to invite some interaction, just to hear back from you. What did you think of the session? Is there anything that you can take with you from this session? Your life, your work outside this session? And maybe I can give you 5 minutes to discuss it with the person sitting next to you. Okay, and then after that, I will take a few minutes just to discuss how it is. So maybe that's the young people. Yes, it is not.
So my name is Colette, and I'm also a member of the Global Diplomacy Lab, and we're having a very interesting discussion here about men and women in a company and bringing this into the gender perspective. And what we're saying is that honesty is so important. So to be honest about who you are, and to be honest about what you would like to give to an endeavor. And to bring this back to the local, we were saying that Cecilia, in her presentation of the nanopolitics, was a wonderful way to start. Because so often we are not aware of the needs of the local level. So your story was very enlightening, that you allowed the woman to invite you in. And I think that that is part of the honesty, that whatever project or initiative we are undertaking, we invite others to let us come into their world and to share with us aspects of their world that we might think we know, but in reality we don't know. So what we take away from this session is the importance of the local, of storytelling, of when you shared that you were a politician and then you became a community organizer, it allows us to relate to what you are explaining to us, to your experience, and to think about our experiences and how we can bring our experiences in and share what we are learning together. So thank you all very much for this very, very informative presentations.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. I'm Peter. I'm from Slovenia and the Netherlands. Next I have the great to talk to Colette. The only thing I would like to add is about dare to be different. If you are different, then you have something to add and you have to contribute. And I'm very happy with Elizabeth. Elizabeth, you are a black woman. So I'm a white male. So you are the most different from me.
Yes.
Thank you for that. And about every black woman, if you as a black woman were not able to contribute not enough to all of us, then I should take it.
Thank you. Okay, on that lovely note, I would like to call this to an end and thank you all so much for being with us to this point. And I hope to see you all tomorrow in different sessions and look forward to talking with you more. I see Center holding some packages up, so if you'd like some more material on the Global Diplomacy Lab, please feel free to pass by where she's sitting or get in touch with her and she will share.